The Passover Lamb, Exodus 12 verses 1 to 30. The moon hung low over Egypt that night, casting pale light across the land of Pharaoh. Yet even the moonlight seemed swallowed by a strange darkness, a tension that pressed against every heart. For 9 plagues Egypt had grown under God's hand, yet Pharaoh's pride remained unbroken. Now the 10th had been foretold, the most terrible of them all. It was the 14th day of the month, the day the Lord had spoken of through his servant Moses. Inside the homes of the Hebrews, a sacred urgency filled the air. Each family had chosen a lamb 4 days earlier, just as God commanded, 1 lamb for each household. It could not be crippled, sick, or scarred. It must be perfect, the very best they had. Some children had grown attached to it during those days, stroking its soft wool, laughing at its gentle bleats in the quiet evenings. But tonight, that lamb would become more than a companion. It would become their salvation. In one home, a weatherman named Eliab held the small animal close, feeling its heartbeat steady against his arm. He knew this lamb had done nothing wrong. It had never strayed from the fold, never brought harm, never caused sorrow. And yet it was chosen to die in the place of his firstborn son. The knife caught the flicker of the oil lamp, one swift motion, and the lamb's cry split the silence, a haunting sound that seemed to pierce the heart. Then it fell quiet, its lifeblood pouring into the basin. The smell of it mingled with the heavy night air. Eliab dipped a bunch of hyssop into the warm blood and stepped outside. All along the narrow street, other fathers were doing the same, shadows moving in silence, marking their doorframes. With each stroke, he whispered in his heart, "This house belongs to the Lord. Death will pass over." Back inside, the lamb was roasted whole over the fire, just as Moses had instructed. Not a bone broken. Bitter herbs and unleavened bread were set on the table. The family ate quickly, dressed for a journey, cloaks on their shoulders, sandals strapped, staffs in hand. Every mouthful carried weight, bitter with the memory of chains and whip, sweet with the taste of freedom drawing near. Midnight approached. The streets lay still, yet the air felt charged as the creation itself was holding its breath. Then it began. A single wail shattered the silence, raw and guttural. Then another, and another. Like a wave swelling into a storm, cries of anguish spread through the city. From Pharaoh's palace to the lowliest hut, death had entered. No household of the Egyptians was spared. The destroyer had passed through the land, striking down the firstborn of man and beast alike. The grief was deafening, a chorus of loss that filled the night. But in the homes marked by the lamb's blood, there was peace. No sword entered. No judgment fell. The blood stood as a silent witness, testified before heaven and hell alike. This life has been redeemed. Israel did not yet see the fullness of what God was revealing. They knew the Lord had delivered them, but they could not yet grasp the greater deliverance to come. For this night was not only about Egypt. It was a shadow of a greater night, a greater lamb, and a greater salvation. Centuries later, in a small town called Bethlehem, that lamb would be born, not from a shepherd's fold, but from the heart of God. He would live without blemish, without sin, and on the appointed day, he too would be led to the place of sacrifice. His blood would be poured out, not on wooden doorposts, but on the wooden beams of a cross. And just as the angel of death had passed over every home covered by the Lamb's blood, so eternal judgment would pass over every soul washed in the blood of the Son. And on that dark afternoon in Jerusalem, the Lamb himself would lift his voice above the jeers, the pain, and the darkness, and declare to the world, "The sacrifice of my life is enough for your salvation." That night in Egypt was more than the end of slavery. It was a whisper of the gospel written in blood. The Passover Lamb was always pointing to Jesus, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world.